And the slide finally stops for Sam Howell at the very top of the fifth round. He's being taken by the Washington Commanders, who recently traded for Carson Wentz. But obviously, based on what we've seen from Carson Wentz both in Philadelphia and in Indianapolis, we're not sold on him as a starting caliber quarterback for the long term. So Ron Rivera and company in Washington are going to get Sam Howell. Now, Howell's a guy who I like quite a bit. And I say quite a bit, I don't mean that much. Like, not to the extent that I would have him going in the first round, but I had him as a top 100 prospect on my board. He's my quarterback 4. And being a guy who went to Clemson, I get to see a lot of Sam Howell. He almost beat us, what year was it? He almost beat us in 2019, I want to say. He's been a really good quarterback. Yeah, I mean, 2019 was his freshman year, I believe. He's been a good quarterback since his freshman season. He's been good as a sophomore. This past year, they lost almost all of their talent on offense. 2 receivers, 2 running backs, both going to the NFL draft, and Sam Howell had to take on a completely different role, and he did it, and he was a really good player this year as well. Even though his numbers declined a little bit, he showed his ability to run. He's almost like a quarterback/fullback with his capabilities. That being said, the reason he falls this far, I'm sure it's probably because he didn't do well on the boards. When people brought him in to actually show him, or for him to show them how to read defenses, how to adjust, how to do that kind of stuff, he did not have to do any of that in North Carolina. A lot of what he had to do was just some one-read options. Some of it was a little bit more than that, but he's not making full-field reads. He clearly is uncomfortable under center. You watch him at the Senior Bowl, under center, his footwork is very sloppy. He just is not comfortable in that position. And he's just not a very pro-style guy right now. He's not been exposed to pro-style concepts. He's not been exposed to making the adjustments he would need to make as a starting quarterback in the NFL. That said, he does happen to play on a roster with Carson Wentz, and if Carson Wentz struggles early on in the season, and Washington has some trouble and starts to fall off a little bit, especially with Ron Rivera being a couple of years into his time with Washington, we might see Sam Howell actually make his debut as a starter at some point this year for the Washington Commanders.